Alright, so let's go ahead and get started on the strut. So when you first open NX, you're going to see something that looks a little bit like this, which is like their welcome page. So to actually start a part file, you're going to want to go up to the top left corner and click New. And then that's going to open this kind of interface, and this will let you pick what kind of file you want to make. We're going to be doing a modeling file, so you can just leave it on model. And then you'll need to pick units. If you did your design like I did, you could just leave it in inches, but if you did yours in meters, you can switch it to millimeters, whatever. And then the other major thing we need to change is the name, so you can call it whatever you want. And so once you set a name, you can just click OK, and it'll open your file, which will look something like this. So the first thing we need to do is make a sketch, which is basically like a 2D drawing of like in our case it will be the cross section, but it'll be a 2D drawing of what you're going to make into a 3D object. So we'll go ahead and click sketch, and you're going to have to pick a plane to put your sketch in. So we're going to pick the XY plane. If you're making something else, you can pick a different plane. We'll just pick this flat one and say OK. Now, we're going to go ahead and, well, I'll show you. So when you open a sketch, you're going to have all these options of like shapes that you can make, like rectangle, circle, and these other things that you can do to edit those shapes, like trim, extend, corner, all these things. So for simplicity, I'll start by showing you how you would CAD a rectangular cross section, and then I'll show you later how to do something a little more complicated. So to do this, you're going to want to just click rectangle, and when you open this, it'll have kind of a menu of different options. There's this one that's like 2 points, this one's 3 points, and then this one's using the center of your rectangle. We'll just leave it on 2 points. And you're going to go ahead and click, just anywhere in the space to pick your first corner, and then just left click, and then you can left click a second place to put the second corner. Now, chances are when you do this, you're also going to have these random numbers that pop up. And this is a built-in feature to NX where it automatically adds dimensions to whatever your sketch is. I don't use these, I just turn this on so that you guys could see. I mean, you probably have the same thing when you first use NX. So if you just want to turn them off so you can't see them, you can click this button and it'll turn them off. But you'll notice down here, it's talking about constrained, and it says with 4 auto dimensions. I never use auto dimensions. If you think you'll never use it, if you just want to disable it, you can just click finish to get out of the sketch real quick. And then I just go File, Preferences, Sketch, and then you'll see right here it says Continuous Auto Dimensioning. You can just unclick that and hit Apply, and then that will stop that. So let's restart this. Same thing, just start with a sketch on your XY plane, and then you'll go ahead and go in here. We'll do a rectangle again. Cool. So now you'll see it just says sketch needs 4 constraints. It doesn't have those auto dimensions. And I'll explain to you basically what a constraint is. So you'll notice that right now this is just like a rectangle in space. If I were to click and drag on any of these corners, I can just move my shape around. So in order to actually like model something off of this, I'll want to like tell the program where, where this corner should be, how long should this side be, things like that. So when you're actually going to constrain a sketch, you'll be using like 2 main tools. There's this dimension tool, and then there's a constraint tool. So a dimension will basically set a length or a measurement on your sketch, and then a constraint will like tell it where it should be in space. So we'll just go ahead and start with a dimension. So I'll just click Rapid Dimension here, and this will pop up this window that has a couple different things we'll need to look at. So the first thing is the method. So what you'll want to do is probably set it to inferred. It has all these options you can pick, which usually you won't need to pick those. It's just if you're doing something that has circles, sometimes NX can have a hard time figuring out if you want like radial or diameter or whatever. But for what we're doing, we can just do inferred, and that'll be fine. And then you'll see it says like select first object. We can just click any of these lines, and you'll see it automatically pops up with a dimension. So in an example I did in the calculation, I had like a 1.2 by 0.8 inch rectangle. So I will go ahead and just set this to 1.2 to match that. Also, once you add a dimension, you can just click this and drag it to move it wherever you want. Yeah. So that'll shrink this so that now this side is set to 1.2. I can move this around. I can move these side lengths, but this side is now stuck to 1.2. Also, by the way, this has a comma delimiter. You can also change that in preferences. This is 1.2, not 1,200, just so you know. And then we can also do the same thing for this side, where we just click here, drag out, and set a dimension. I'll set this to 0.8. And now you'll see I've got both sides dimensioned. I can move this rectangle around, but I can't actually change the sides of the rectangle and their lengths. So that's exactly what we're looking for. And then you'll see at the bottom here, it'll say sketch needs 2 constraints instead of 4 because we've constrained these sides now. The other nice thing is that since we use the rectangle tool, it automatically sets these 4 lines to be perpendicular to each other and this top one to be horizontal. So that's really nice because now we just have to constrain where this is in space. So we'll go ahead and do that. And to do that, we will just click this geometric constraints button. Now, this has a lot of different options, which you can use. We'll really only need like a few of these for this project, but if you're curious, you can like look through these, test them out, but they all do different things. For now, we're going to use this vertical alignment one. Basically what this does is, you can even read, it selects 2 points to be vertically aligned in your space. So I'm going to use this because I want the middle point of this to be aligned vertically with the middle point of my plane. And basically all this is doing is setting the origin of my plane here to be at the middle of my rectangle. So to do this, I click vertical alignment, and then I'll click this midpoint of the top line here. Sometimes it'll pop up a couple options, but we'll just pick the midpoint. And then you'll need to select the object to constrain, which will be the midpoint, and the object you constrain to, which will be the origin. So then you just click the origin, and you'll notice it adds this little line which represents the constraint. And you'll see now, if I try and drag this around, I can move it up and down, but I can't move it left and right because the middle point of this is constrained to stay here. So we'll do a similar thing to go the other way. We'll use the horizontal alignment this time, and we will just left click the middle point here, and then we'll click the origin. And now you'll see it says at the bottom, sketch is fully constrained, and if I click and drag on this in any way, it won't move. I'll also add really quickly, if you ever need to zoom in or out, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse, and then to actually like rotate, just press and hold the scroll wheel and move your mouse around. And if you need to like pan, you can just press and hold shift, press down the scroll wheel, and move it about. I'll also add a list of those controls into the Confluence page for this, but I thought I'd just show you really quick. Okay, so now our sketch is done. It's fully constrained. We've got what we need. Now you can go ahead and click finish. So now you can see this is a 2D drawing in the XY plane. So now we'll make it into an actual 3D object. So you're going to just click extrude. Now, the first thing you'll need to do when you click extrude is pick a curve. Now, it automatically picked my sketch because I just made it, but in any case, if you needed to extrude something and it didn't select the right thing, you can just click on the curve, or you can click it over here on the left side to actually select your curve. Once that's selected, we'll also need to pick a direction. So in our case, it already picked the z-axis, but let's say I wanted it to go in the negative z direction. I can just click this button that reverses the direction. There you go. Also, if I wanted to pick a vector that wasn't the y-axis, I could click this specify vector and that would also do it. But we want ours in the positive z direction, so that's fine. We'll just click that back. There we go. Now, the next thing I want to do is pick the start and end value. Now, I'm pretty sure yours is automatically going to think it wants you to do this, which is fine. So we'll leave it at start value of 0, but then our end value is going to need to be the length of our strut. So let's say I set it to 10. Okay. There we go, there's my strut. I say okay, it extrudes it, done. But now let's say, oh wait, I actually meant to say I want this to extrude to 15. You can just double click extrude, it'll pull the window back up, and I can change it to 15. Just like that. Cool. So then I'll hit OK. And this is basically all you would need to do to make something like a strut in a basic design. So this would be done. We could just save this and that's it. But I'll also show you how to do like a little bit more complicated of a cross section really quick, just so you can get an idea of what that would look like. So to do that, I'll just get rid of my extrusion really quick and we'll go back to this sketch. Actually, we'll just go ahead and delete this. So let's say instead I wanted to do an I-beam. We'll go ahead, we'll pick the XY plane again. Awesome. Now, the difference between kind of a rectangle or square kind of thing versus like an I-beam is there's no tool that does an I-beam. So the way you would want to do this is to create, you know, some rectangles and, you know, connect them all together, just like so. And then, you know, I would want to constrain this because obviously this rectangle is not connected here. So to do that, I'm doing a collinear constraint, connect this to this. Okay, but now this is actually 3 rectangles. So to make this into one eye, you can use this trim tool and you just click on the lines you want to delete. And there you go. Now it's one eye. Now, of course, this isn't constrained. And if you actually wanted to constrain this, you know, of course, you can dimension these things how you wanted, whatever you need to do. But then, you know, you want to constrain this as well to the origin. That's how you make an I-beam. However, I'm also going to show you a quicker way to do this because if you're doing something that is symmetrical, there's a faster way to do them. So again, I would create a sketch, but this time, let's say we're making a symmetrical I-beam. I could make a rectangle like this and a rectangle like this, and then, you know, trim off the middle pieces. But I'm also going to add a line, and then I'll make this line centered here, and we'll also constrain this so that it sits at the origin. Now, of course, if I was actually going to use this, I would constrain this better, like fully constrain this, but I'm just doing this for the purpose of showing you how I would do this. Basically, you can right-click this line here, and you're going to say convert to reference. So it's going to make it into a dotted line, and now, rather than being part of this sketch, this is just a reference geometry. And then we'll use, right up here, called the mirror tool, which allows me to select this curve, and then I'll have to pick a center line, which I'll pick my reference line that I just made, and say apply, and it automatically just like reflects this curve onto the other side. So this is super nice if you're doing like something symmetrical. It'll save you a lot of time. You only have to do one side and then you can mirror it. You know, if you're making something that's symmetric, you know, you need to pattern it 4 times. There's a pattern tool as well, but you could also just mirror it and then mirror that again. Something like that would allow you to save a lot of time. And then same thing, you could just extrude this to make a strut. Now, one more thing I'll show you really quick. We'll do a little more of this in the bracket, but a super nice thing is you can also add new sketches and extrusions right on existing planes of something you just made. So let's say I wanted, I'll show you this part that I made as an example for the project. It's an I-beam, as you can see, but it also has this kind of like base plate at the bottom here. So if I was going to want to make something like that, I can just select the bottom face of the strut we just made, say OK, and now I can just sketch right on the bottom of the piece I've already made. And I could just make, you know, a really basic rectangle, constrain that, and then I can just extrude right from there. So I can extrude this out, you know, 1 inch or whatever I wanted to do, and now I've got like a really simple base plate on there. So that's just an example of like how you can model off of something that you've already made. We'll do more of that in the bracket, like I said, but that just gives you an idea of, you know, kind of the capabilities. Once you've started to model, you can just continue adding to it. Another thing, if you ever wanted to hide the sketch so you don't have to see the blue lines, you can just click this little eye button over here, and that's what it looks like. So yeah, once that's all done, go ahead, save your part, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the bracket.